Well, welcome back to all of our friends out there in the Boss Hole Transformation Nation. This is your host, John Broer, and it's good to have you back for part 2 of our conversation with Jason Lauritsen. Now, if you didn't listen to part 1, which dropped last week, go back and listen to it, because Sarah and I had a chance to talk to Jason about his role and his work in the 2026 Human Connection Study. You can download a copy of it from the show notes. The results in this research do a few things. They not only confirm things that we have been seeing in the workplace, but they actually reveal some really surprising findings, things that are critical not only for organizations to know, but especially managers that want to stay out of the boss hole zone. So check out part 1 and let's jump in to part 2 with Jason Lauritsen. The Boss Hole Chronicles are brought to you by Real Good Ventures, a talent optimization firm helping organizations diagnose their most critical people and execution issues with world-class analytics. Make sure to check out all the resources in the show notes and be sure to follow us and share your feedback. Enjoy today's episode.
In the study, there's a pretty interesting finding that you came across that I think would blow some people's minds. We know that there's been this ongoing debate and frustration around return to work and remote workers versus hybrid workers versus in the office, and these assumptions that we probably all still hold on to, old school like most of our leadership stuff, is that people in the office are going to have more connection. Can you tell us about what you found out there?
Yeah, that was certainly other than the there being sort of such a distinctive two types of connection, this was the other big surprise for us. And it's proven to be the surprise for a lot of people. What the data revealed is that, at least in the way we're measuring connection, the group that scored as having the highest percentage of disconnected employees were non-management employees working fully on site. So this is your non-manager, your individual contributors working fully on site were the most disconnected. And then the group that overall scored as most connected were employees in this sample that were working fully remote. And so that's a head scratcher for a lot of people because it doesn't match with our assumptions. Now, I want to be careful about this because this doesn't mean, oh, well, remote work is obviously the better kind of work, or in office is always bad. That's not, this isn't a commentary on that.
Right.
What it's a commentary on is that, at least the way we took it is, and I think that the whole data, like this whole study basically says there's more going on with connection than what meets the eye, right? The way that we want to sort it is sort of, we want it to be very simple or very black and white. If you're not in the office around other people, then you're going to feel lonely and disconnected. I also think that the fact that we have with this understanding of connection, with relational and resonance connection, and I mean, I think the underlying thing here that I personally think is what is going on here on some level is that the two findings fit together because the fact that there is relational connection, which is important, and it's my connection with my peers, my connection with my manager, are kind of the two big drivers right there in relational at work. The existence of resonance connection, and the interesting thing about resonance connection is that in our data set, it was the more powerful predictor of the outcomes that we're trying to produce in the organization, the performance outcomes, whether I feel included, whether I feel like my work is meaningful, all of those things. Resonance connection actually was more highly predictive of those things. I think what's going on in this finding is that actually remote workers might have an advantage in terms of feeling the resonance connection, both with the organization and with their individual work, because they have less noise. And I think the signal maybe is a little bit, I think organizations are more clear, more intentional about that kind of stuff with remote employees, making sure you feel and understand you're a part of something, and making sure that you get more meaningful, I think, check-in sometimes than even people that are on site, because we just assume if you're on site, you're going to feel connected. And I think that's working against us. So So yes,
Yeah.
big headline. I don't know. I can't tell you definitively what it means. That warrants more research in terms of why that showed up that way. But I think it has to do with connection isn't just about, if I have a BFF at work.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, the study clearly indicates the connection is multifaceted. By the way, I think we need to talk about managers. I mean, this is the Boss Hole Chronicles. So our
Yep.
managers and would-be managers that are eagerly trying to figure out what is my impact on connection, like it or not, psychological safety, connection, engagement, performance, managers have a disproportionately higher impact on that.
Hmm.
And I think that is revealed to a degree in the study. So talk about managers being a critical component here. Tell us a little
Yeah.
bit more about how managers can receive and understand the results here.
Yeah. In the least surprising finding in the survey, managers matter. Managers are a
Yeah.
big
Hmm.
deal in this.
They do.
Um, so there's a couple of things going on. I think very directly we measured manager connection because, not unsurprisingly, I should say that one of the places when we ask people to talk about connection at work, where either connection either is very clear and strong or the absence of it is very disruptive, is with their direct manager.
Mm-hmm.
Their direct manager is the face of work to the employee, right? They are the face of the work relationship. And so what we found was that manager connection, and the way that we're measuring manager connection, because this is kind of the way that people talked about it in phase one of the research, is, do I feel like my manager genuinely listens to me?
Mm-hmm.
Number one. And can I be honest with my manager without fear?
Yeah.
Like those are the two markers of manager connection, strength of manager connection that we were measuring based on sort of how that emerged. The finding around manager connection that was sort of mind blowing, there's two, is that manager connection predicts 75% of the variance in whether an employee feels supported at work.
Mm.
Hmm.
So the degree to which, if my manager is, if I have high connection with my manager, I am way, way, way more likely to feel like I'm supported at work. I
Mm-hmm.
am also way more likely to feel as though my manager is invested in my development.
Yeah.
Both of those things are vitally important to engagement and performance. And so it has the manager connection itself, the actual relationship they're building, how they're interacting with people, is incredibly important and incredibly powerful in predicting the things that get us what we want with engagement and performance. But the manager also sort of sits at the intersection of all the things. So like if you think about, if connection is the energy of performance, the manager basically can either plug you into the grid or cut the cord,
Mm-hmm.
like depending on, right? So you can do
Yeah.
everything else right as an organization that creates the opportunity for connection. You can have, kind of clear vision and purpose and strategy and direction that people can connect to. You can have a culture that, reinforces our purpose and meaning so that I feel like I'm doing work that matters. I can have peer relationships, all of that. But if, or have the opportunity for that. But if my manager doesn't have the skills or the tools or the permission to really plug me into that, they
Right.
can they can undercut the whole cycle. And so that's why I say they're a linchpin, because manager connection is incredibly important one to one, but manager also sits in the position to facilitate, they're best situated to facilitate peer connection, to make the space for people to get to know each other and have room to actually build those relationships and connection at work. They are the ones that are best suited to help an employee understand why their work matters or the
Mm-hmm.
impact their work has, which is what we call personal resonance. That's a very specific type of connection that's really powerful. They're
Hmm.
also the chief translator for the employee of the sort of direction and purpose of the organization to the employee, making sure that they're having the opportunity to connect to that. And that, which we call organizational resonance, which is my individual connection to the purpose and direction of the organization, is the most powerful driver of performance outcomes that we have in the survey. It outperformed all the other types of connection. And that is really starts at the leadership team. Obviously, they have to do the work to make that clear and make it so that people can connect to it. But the manager is in the seat to undermine all the work if they don't do that work or if they're not equipped. And so, again, I think what it shows is managers incredibly important.
Yep.
Organizationally, your managers are a linchpin. And it also says, again, managers have probably the hardest job in the organization, and they tend to be wildly undersupported, right? So
Yeah.
nothing new in that. It just sort of raises the stakes yet again on getting this right.
It seems to me that certainly is not a new take, that managers have the most difficult job. I sincerely agree. It would make sense that they spend, and this is what we observe often, that managers spend most of their time helping people do the work, which is another finding in your study, and not enough time, not nearly enough time, helping people understand why their work matters.
Yep.
And nowhere, I mean, I'm thinking throughout my whole career, nowhere, anywhere did someone sit down with me and say, hey, this is where we're headed, and this is why what you're doing today and every day makes so much difference. And I'm sure no one ever told my bosses that either.
Yeah.
So that's a
Yeah.
huge takeaway. That's
Yeah.
doable.
From the top down, it is really like, but we've been part of things. Most everybody can think of like being part of something
Like a
that,
project or an
that you felt
initiative
like
or
was going somewhere. You understood what it was about. You understood why it mattered. Maybe it was outside of work and you were part of a cause,
yeah.
right? Or you were
Yeah.
part of a community effort that was building a thing or trying to get funding for something. And you're so motivated, like that purpose, that sense of direction and purpose pulls you. When you feel connected to it, it pulls you in a way that we've all felt that. And that's available to us at work. We just don't use it. We're just not tapping it and harnessing that power.
Sarah, I think that you make such a great point. I can, on one or two fingers, count managers that I've had in my career that actually facilitated that feeling or helped to create that. One in particular, she was absolutely amazing, but we had a big team but individually she helped us understand our roles and the importance in terms of the outcome for the organization. But more importantly, she was that, like you said, Jason, that translator, that conduit, that facilitator between that bridge between corporate and our team, the things that we needed to know. There were things that she could not communicate to us. And then, of course, she was bridging that gap, but did so in a way that was very clear. And we felt like our roles were, ascending to a higher purpose, if you will, to support the organization. To me, it's in my career, it's been rare. Sarah, I think that's what you've also expressed. I think this is I call this the bullet train to the boss hole zone. Organizations that promote people into management and supervisory roles and don't realize the critical nature of preparing those managers for this very stuff. It's not about being an elevated individual contributor. It is a totally different set of skill sets and business acumen. And you just defined it or codified it, if you will, in the study. I think this is hugely powerful.
I think, it's one of the biggest opportunities. I mean, I think clearly there's, if you think takeaways, if I'm on the other side of this thinking organizationally, what would I do with all of this, right? There's kind of two pieces, I think, two big opportunities. One is something that we've probably already been scratching at, which is we need to really make sure that our managers have the relational skills to build connection with their people, right? That they really can, they know how to listen. They know how to really see and hear people. They know how to create safe spaces. They know how to help people feel included. Like those are the core things. That's the work you do. That's a lot of the work that I do. Like that is important, and that continues to be really important. Double down there. The other side of it, though, is I think the biggest missed opportunity, and the data played this out, is that, we talked about organizational resonance being the most powerful driver. It's also the least commonly experienced type of connection. So that's where the gap is. And so that's your opportunity, is if you can create a clear, compelling story about where the organization is going, why it matters, how we're going to get there together, and then cascade that down into the culture so that your managers, and then equip your managers to tell that story, to carry that water so that people can feel it. That is rocket fuel. Like
Hmm.
that's where your game changing kind of move is, but it requires some real work. I mean, and
Hmm.
it starts at the top of the organization. This is something that if there's not clarity about these things, you can't connect to something that is unclear.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm just thinking about how, at its very core and at the highest level of leadership, there has to be a belief in the responsibility to cultivate a safe culture. Like, is it okay? Like, do people feel like they can be themselves here? I think that's the first thing. The second thing is, I'm hearing here is, are we, and I think this is essential, are we as leaders and as a leadership team aligned around what we said is most important and where we're headed? So that alignment at the top becomes critical. Um, Next, there's emotional intelligence. As leaders and managers, am I able to understand and adjust? We like to say adjust our dials as needed to meet the moment. So I'm, for example, very highly extroverted. Do I know when to back that down and slow my roll a little bit to be more present and less needy from other people? Can I be that presence? And for each one of us, it's a different journey. I was thinking earlier about how it doesn't matter what your behavioral profile is. There's different needs. We just need to understand the significance of those needs and find ways to meet them in the moment. That's emotional intelligence from a manager or leadership perspective. And I think the last thing is, and this is what you just talked about, help employees understand why what they're doing matters. So let me just give you this little quick summary. Identity lets me belong from your research. Relationship lets me connect. Resonance gives me a reason to care, which equals high performance. Would that be
Mm.
safe to say?
Yeah, that's a great summary. I think I'll reflect on that more, but on the surface, that sounds like a really good summary of kind of what this surfaced.
Well, and even if leaders took a look at those three items, what's the belonging? What's the sense of safety here in our organization? What's the sense of trust and psychological safety? What are the quality of the relationships that we have? Are we measuring that? Are we talking with people about their feeling seen and having connection with people? And I want to interchange relationship and connection. And the last one is, hey, have we even settled on where we're going and what our priorities are?
Hmm.
And have we found a way to cascade those and share those and repeatedly share those and beat the drum in a way that motivates people so they get clarity? Brene
Yeah.
Brown says, clear is kind. Nothing is more kind than making that well known.
Yeah.
This is such important work, Jason.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, I think that the remote work finding is surprising, but I think we
Yeah.
Hmm.
can explain that away, whatever. But the rest of
Yeah.
this none of it's new. I think what it does is it's helped to kind of illuminate the relationship that these things have to one another. And it helps, sort of helps us understand the importance and significance of it. Because I think the thing for me, like two of the things that I'm really hopeful about with this research as we hopefully get out and, share it with more people and more people become aware of it and can use it in their work is that
Mm.
connection has like you're going to be hard pressed to find someone who will say connection doesn't matter. Right. I mean, even you go walk around an organization, everybody's like, well, yeah, we want, feeling connection's a good thing, but it gets talked about as a byproduct, right? If we create a great culture, then people will feel connected. And that's a good thing because maybe that helps us somehow. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
Yeah.
it's been a byproduct, whereas now we know it produces something that makes performance far more likely, right? It
Hmm.
elevates performance. It elevates not only how motivated I am, but how much of myself I feel like I can put into my work or will
Mhm.
voluntarily put into my work, which very directly contributes to engagement and performance and the rest. And then I think the other thing that it does is if that's true, then the positioning of identity congruence upstream of that sort of finally helps us understand why all of this inclusion work is so important.
Hmm.
In the greater sort of conversation and debate over all of this stuff, we've
Mhm.
sort of lost the thread. And the thread should have always been, listen, this isn't nice to have, this isn't
Right.
culture war, this isn't anything. This is about results. And if
Yep.
you care about having a high performance organization that's going to continue to grow, that's going to continue to scale, and it's going to do it in a way that sort of builds momentum on itself, right? Sort of, it's like a flywheel. The only way that works is if the people that you hire and are investing in can come to work and bring and be who they are, so that they can then let that loose, right? They can turn all of that loose in the organization. This data finally sort of, I think, at least starts showing us a picture of how this actually is way upstream. If you don't have an inclusive workplace, if you don't have managers that can create that kind of safety for people, or people that will do it for each other, the amount of performance that you're leaving on the table, the amount of outcomes, the amount of ingenuity and commitment and all of the things you're leaving on the table is astronomical. And so this is the beginning, I think. Hopefully we'll continue to be able to sort of dive deeper around this research over time to really prove it out. But I think this sends a really strong signal that you better have your eye on this ball if you really want to maximize what your organization is capable of.
Yeah. Especially now, especially in this transformative, crazy time. Oh man, good stuff, Jason. Are you taking this show on the road? I know you do a lot of keynote speaking, and you do a lot of, on some pretty hefty stages. You taking this out there?
Yeah, we debuted this actually this spring. I shared this, did a sort of a new keynote called "Connection is the Strategy," where I kind of talk about, sort of revealed this. I did that at an event in April, and then again at WorkHuman Live this year. And
nice.
My goal is to get this, and we did this because I believe so deeply in this work, and it, and it validates the work that you do, validates the work we do. This is what we help organizations do. We help them sort of build the conditions so that connection can thrive, so that then you get all the things you want, right? You get the growth and the performance and the outcomes that you want, but it starts by really understanding this. And so I'm trying to get out and tell this story everywhere I can, whether that's, taking it, we've got things coming up going inside of organizations, helping them think about that with their teams. I will go talk about this pretty much anywhere they'll have me, because I think it's so important. And so,
it's a roadmap.
Yeah. And we've recommended, Jason, you to clients of ours for keynotes and conferences and things like that. So to our listeners, go into the show notes. You will be able to download a copy of the 2026 Human Connection Study. Jason's contact information will be there. Jason's previous appearances on the Boss Hole Chronicles will be in there. You would serve your organization well by really digging into this. And Jason, we can't thank you enough for sharing it with the Boss Hole Transformation Nation.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks for the platform.
All right, friends. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time on the Boss Hole Chronicles.
Thanks very much for checking out this episode of the Boss Hole Chronicles. It was so good to have you here. And if you have your own Boss Hole story that you want to share with the Boss Hole Transformation Nation, just reach out. You can email us at mystory@thebossholechronicles.com. Again, mystory@thebossholechronicles.com. We'll see you next time.